Hi everyone, and welcome to the first in a series of episodes here on Mark's English History channel, being filmed in Normandy. And all these films, they are involving the Normandy Landings of 1944. I do apologise now for those of you that specifically follow my page for English history, in that I will be covering American and Canadian history as well, but in my view we're all in this together, so that's why I have decided to do the whole lot as one on my page. So the first episode here is the pre-mission episode, and that is the British Airborne Assault. Now I'm standing in quite a unique location at the moment, so I will swing you around. I'm in a town called Normandy, and just ahead of us you will see a bridge. Now that bridge is the bridge over the Airborne Canal. Today it has a different name, and that is because it is named after this, which is the emblem of the British Airborne Divisions, and its name is Pegasus. So this is the famous Pegasus Bridge, captured by members of the 6th Airborne Brigade in the early hours of the 6th of June 1944. The reason why they attack here and capture this position, and why it was so important that they did take and capture this position early on, is that the Airborne Canal forms the eastern flank of the entire beachheads. Sword Beach, the easternmost beach, is a few kilometres in that direction, with the rest of the beaches all going off in that sector. Now, by capturing and controlling this bridge, it meant one of two things. First of all, once the landing parties do come ashore early on the 6th of June, get up here, link up with the airborne troops, they are able to manoeuvre both sides up the cross and manoeuvre both sides of the canal. Secondly, by capturing this specific bridge here, and then other elements of the 6th Airborne Division blowing the bridges further to the south, it prevents any German counter-attack coming in on the flank. So it gives you a very protected flank of the Airborne Canal here. The other reason why the 6th Airborne as a division land here is that they often forgot about sector of this operation, which is in that direction, which is northeast. On the coast is the Merville battery of the Atlantic Wall, and the idea was to take that battery as well as taking the bridges. Now that's often forgotten because of what happens here overshadows everything else. So we're going to have a look around the site. There is a museum here that I'm going to look in. Probably like all the rest of them, I can't film inside, but we can film around all the locations. Now another thing to note here, and I will film it from this side, hopefully I'll get actually I'm going to cross the bridge and film it whilst we're crossing. So if you look across there, you can just see a cafe. Now that is the first house liberated by the Allies. But before I get to that point, because we're going to have to cross the road and look at the landing sites, etc. before then. But the reason why that is important is that that house, within that house, that cafe was a resistance cell. And the lady that owned the cafe at the time was originally from Alsace, which is part of France, but has always been contentious as to whether it belongs to France or Germany. So the Germans captured it in 1870 as part of the Franco-Prussian War. It was then returned to France as part of the Treaty of Versailles. As a result, the lady that owned and ran that cafe could speak German. What she didn't tell any of the German customers was that she could speak German. As a result, she was able to pass information on to British intelligence about certain things upon this bridge, which we will come to later in the story. But for now, the museum's shut and doesn't open just yet, and I'm walking across the bridge, so I thought I will get in and get a cup of coffee at the cafe. So the cafe, after the capture of the bridge, was used as both a command centre and an aid station further along the road there, you can just see, hopefully at the far end, there is a roundabout. Now that at the time was the infamous T-junction, and that was about as far as the Germans got in terms of a counter-attack before the landings happened at Salt Beach, and they were withdrawn to fight against, to operate against that. So that is the history of the cafe and that section of the road. So just a point of reference that the bridge that I was walking across at the moment is actually a new bridge. The original one has been removed to create a larger crossing. It is part of the museum though, so I will be going to show you that later, as well as the landing site and the memorial there. I also wanted to show you whilst I'm here part of the German defences of the bridge, so quite a large and formidable gun there. Okay, so I'm in the museum grounds now. I've just come out from inside where you watch a film about the whole operation, but the reason why I've got the camera on now, and one, they wouldn't let you film inside, but right in front of me, this is the original bridge. It's been moved into the memorial when they increased the size of the bridge. Now there's also a lot of other paraphernalia around, American half-track there, another flat gun, but we're going to go up and we're going to have a good look at the bridge. And so this is it here. So we're just going to have a walk on it. So the poppy reef that's placed upon the bridge is the approximate size where I think it's Bowbridge, a lieutenant in the 2nd Oxon Bucks, who are the regiment that take the bridge, he falls, and he is the first Allied casualty of D-Day. Right here on the bridge. Now you can see through here it's an iron grilled bridge. You've got the tower at that end, so the modern bridge does actually replicate this in its look, purely due to the significance of this bridge, with the SM being because it pivots up and down to allow access up and down the Iron Canal. So the tower end on the original bridges we saw, or the replacement bridges we saw earlier, replicates this. So it, to in purposes, although yes they've put a new, more substantial modern bridge in, it is a direct replacement of the original, because it does have such an important piece in the French national history. Heading down now, there's a reason why we're coming down here. Again, along this side you can see the pedestrian walkway running along, over which the 2nd Oxon Bucks stormed, and then out there you can see what the natural countryside looked like. But we're heading down here because there's a bit of a baby bridge in front of us, which is the transportative bridges. Obviously they use them quite heavily on the Mulberry Harbours, but there was something that came on. But the reason why we're coming down here is because ahead of us is a replica of a horse glider, and this is what the 2nd Oxon Bucks landed on. Now I'll go into more detail about what happened, how they landed, etc. When we get onto the landing site once we leave the museum in a bit, but that's what that looks like. I'm just going to go up. They've got it all set up inside, so we'll just wait until we get a chance to go up. Okay, so the horse glider was made out of wood with canvas stretched over it and starched. As you can see, very basic design. Obviously it is to be used once and ditched, towed over by C-47 Dakotas. Now when you look inside, you can see it is just benches all the way along. You've got a soldier sitting there, and inside you've got very rudimentary controls, and that is it. They were obviously released, and then it was just a matter of gliding them down. See, these were the slightly bigger ones, the American gliders that they use over on the American airborne operational sites, such as St. Marie de Mont and St. Mary Glees, were smaller than this, but they had a smaller low capacity. So hopefully you can see it in there. Reflection is quite bad, unfortunately, but inside, if I come around here in the shade, it might be a bit better. This is a original Horsa glider, fuselage in there, so there are the odd bits still about. Like I say, that one over there is a modern replica to illustrate what it looks like. But the section that we're looking at here is by the wings, so you can probably just see sort of like the area of the wing strut there. Okay, so we're now heading over towards the landing site here at Pegasus Bridge. So on the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through the rest of the 6th Airborne operation. So it wasn't just the capture of these bridges. First of all, there was another set of fire brigade out on the Dee River, which is to the left of us as we're looking, but on the east, again on the eastern flank. The Dee River, if you know anything about the English history and Norman conquest, was where William the Conqueror first assembled his invasion fleet. But that was a key position to capture those bridges and destroy them, to stop any German counterattack, because one of the reasons why this was chosen as a position for the invasion is that the Orne River separates two German army groups. So if they can blow the bridges on that eastern flank, it prevents that second army group being able to come down so swiftly into the Allied flank as it establishes the beachhead here. Furthermore, as I said before, up to the north was the Merville Battery of the Atlantic Wall, and the chance to capture the large guns. Now unfortunately I've not got time to go up to the Merville Battery today, but it will be very similar to the batteries at Pont de Hoc and Longueuil-sur-Mer that I'll visited in my other videos that are coming out shortly, so stay tuned for those. That was captured all on the night of the 5th to the 6th, so the landings actually start occurring on the 5th prior to midnight. Now that section of the operation doesn't go quite according to plan. That section is led by the paratroopers, so they're coming down, they're getting dispersed under heavy flak, and they're missing drop zones all over the place, very similar to, you know, what happens in the American sector. Eventually they do reform and they do capture those bridges and blow them, and eventually there's heavy fighting involved, but they do take the Merville Battery. Now with the operations here at Pegasus Bridge, it is a slightly different scenario, because the bridges here are captured by forces landed by a glider. Now gliders are a precursor to helicopter assault, because instead of dropping parachutists by sticks that can get blown all over the place as they land, they get dropped in one unit of about 30 men per plane. Now what happens here at Pegasus Bridge is that we get 3 gliders land, and this is the area now on which the landings took place in. Now the landings are brought in by the transport department of the RAF and the glider forces, and the lead pilot, Lieutenant Warwalk, is leading, and so they start off, they come in over that direction where they're dropped by the C-27 Dakotas. They then make a large loop and they come in along here and down here into this area here. Now what you need to remember is that this is a defended bridge. So across here there is a row of barbed wire. Now Major Howard, who commands the 2nd Ox and Bucks Light Infantry, who is the regiment that will storm and siege the bridge here, has asked Flight Lieutenant Warwick to, if he can put his nose of his glider through the barbed wire. Now what happens is that they come in through this sector here, and they hit the ground, and they skid, and they eventually break through that barbed wire. So when, after about 10-15 seconds whilst they're unconscious, they are at a complete mercy to the German gunners up there. If they'd have heard them coming, heard the crash, they open up. As we've seen at the Horsa glider in the museum, it's made of wood and canvas. It will not stood a chance of protecting these men at all. Instead, they have achieved complete surprise. The Germans are completely unaware in their bunkers, and you saw part of it down there with that heavy gun facing the Orne River, Orne Canal. They have not gone. They've landed completely unawares. So after the 10-15 seconds, when it takes them to get themselves come round, they burst out of the glider and they come up here and charge across the bridge. The first time the Germans know anything about the attack is when the first machine gun positions are overrun. They then go up onto the bridge. Germans are coming out of the positions up there, and that is where Lieutenant Dan Bowbridge, apologies I got his name wrong in the earlier video, is hit, and he becomes the first British casualty of D-Day at that point. Now, after the first landing, the first glider comes in and lands, a second one comes in a bit further down. Now with that one, it's coming low, it's coming fast, and it's hit the ground and it's skidding towards the first glider. So the glider of that glider attempts to pull the glider around. In doing so, he snaps it in half. Again, troops are pouring out, they're pouring up onto the position ahead of us, up there onto the bridge, and they capture the bridge. The bridge falls fairly quickly. What then the orders are is to hold until relieved, and that is where the real battle begins, because the Germans, not only in the bridge but also up in the nearby towns, start streaming towards the area to the bridge. The cordon is pushed out to the T-junction, and at that point a battle ensues that is potentially make or break for the entire invasion, because if the Germans were able to penetrate that defensive cordon and push on down to here, they will be able to wipe out this part of the Ox and Bucks down here, and then push on to attack the rest of the 6th Airborne Division down here, fighting for either the bridges on the Dive or the Melville Battery. And the Melville Battery eventually falls in fierce hand-to-hand fighting, which paves the way then for the landing on Salt Beach. Now, when the landings occur on Salt Beach, there is a commando unit under Lord Lovett, and we'll talk more about Lord Lovett when we get down onto Salt Beach in the episode there. But his regiment, his troops' first task, having captured the landing, is to link up, get pushing land and link up with the guys holding Pegasus Bridge. Now, one thing that needs to be remembered about the whole assault of the 6th Airborne Division is that there is a German, the 21st Panzer Regiment, stationed just to the east of us. Now, this is where some would say luck comes into it, because the Panzer regiments are actually under the direct command of Adolf Hitler. Now, when the landings occur, Hitler's asleep, and no one is brave enough in the German High Command to wake Adolf and tell him that landings have occurred. As a result, the landings, those heavy armoured troops that are some of the hardest fighting, fiercest units within the regiments within the Wehrmacht, are held back, and that gives the Allies plenty of opportunity to land and consolidate their position prior to Hitler being informed of the invasion and those forces being launched into the operation again, which would have easily rolled up this flank and then could have attacked the assault on Saul B. So this is a fundamental, Pegasus Bridge and the operation is a fundamental process of the success of the Battle of Normandy. In fact, it's on this bridge here that the entire, or the area commanded by the 6th Airborne Division, that the entire pivot for the Allied army is made, that moves from that sweeps around. So the British here at Pegasus Bridge essentially mark time whilst the whole army sweeps out of Normandy. It's why, for example, that when Paris falls, it falls to the Americans. Yes, okay, the French are the first ones to enter, but that's more of a diplomatic move on the side of the Allies to let de Gaulle's army enter the capital first. It, in a sense, falls to it is the American army that's done most of the work to get there. It then sweeps across Europe, fighting through the Ardennes, and the 6th Airborne Division is fully involved until mid-autumn 1944, at which time it is eventually pulled out. Now, obviously, the second most famous airborne assault of the war after D-Day happens at Arnhem and the crossing of the Rhine, obviously immortalised in the story A Bridge Too Far. And that is where they will then, unfortunately, they had a terrible time of it, because as the title of the movie suggests, the idea of capturing the Free Bridge is similar to the plan that works so well here doesn't work, because eventually the German army is able to stop the armour corps arriving. But that is a brief snapshot of the war, the rest of the war, from the Airborne Division's point of view. Now, what I'm just going to do is just to walk you through, because there are 3 monuments here. You've kind of seen them as we go, but I'm going to go up close to them now. So this is the location just here that the first glider is to land. Actually flown by the pilots. Now, actually, I got it wrong. It wasn't a flight lieutenant, it was a staff sergeant. It was Warwick and Ainsworth landed theirs here. Next to it is a memorial to Major John Howard, who commanded the 2nd Battalion Oxen Backlight Infantry here. Now, something to bear in mind is on the film The Longest Day, Major John Howard is played by the English actor Richard Todd. Now, Richard Todd on D-Day was in the 6th Airborne himself. He was a paratrooper and he was based out further east, I believe, in the capture of the Melville Battery. But he was used here at Pegasus Bridge. And Lord Lovett was played actually by himself. And there is the scene in it where they shake hands and Lord Lovett apologises for his tardiness in reaching Major Howard here. Also in that film, they are then led across the bridge by Piper Millen, and I'll come to Piper Millen later when we're down on Salt Beach. Now, just coming up to here, this is the site of the landing of the 2nd Horsa, and as I said, this is the one that's, because as you can see from just up there, it's not too far, that they were afraid that they were going to hit. So So when they landed here, piloted by Staff Sergeant Barkway and Boyle, they spun it around, and that's what caused it to crash and to snap in half. However, by snapping it in half, although it wounded a couple of soldiers at the point of the break, it actually allowed the soldiers to disembark a lot quicker than it did the first one, which made the perfect landing and pierced the barbed wire. As a result, they could stream up there as well. And then lastly, down here and around the corner at the furthest point is where glider number 3 lands. Now obviously at this point in time now, it's a bit of the landing site is a memorial park. However, at the time, you'll be looking more like the shrubbery to either side of us. Also, what is noticeable as well is the rather large pond here. So they didn't actually have much room for error in terms of their landing. In fact, Air Marshal Trafford Lee Mallory, who is in command of the Allied Air Forces, later goes on record to say the flying of Staff Sergeant Warwick and Ainsworth in the first glider was the finest piece of pilotry in the entire Second World War. Here's the memorial here to the third glider. Now that's going some, considering some of the feats of flying made by both the British and American soldier pilots during the Second World War. When you consider that the levels of flying skill needed to fly the Lancasters during the infamous the Dambusters raid or Operation Chastise earlier in the war by 633 Squadron, not 633. Or the 633 Squadron assaults. So they have got quite a significant, that is quite some statement to say that the landings here were some of the best flying that have been known. Now we're just going to go up, there's another memorial up there, one of the older ones, so we're just going to take a look at that. Inside the museum there was actually a memorial as well, and obviously I couldn't take photos inside, so what I'm going to do is at the end of each episode is I'm going to create a slideshow of some of the best photos from the sites that I visit, and that will be the same for all of them, because I think you'll agree with me that it's disrespectful to film videos inside Allied cemeteries, things like and places of sacrifice such as that. However, I have taken some quick stills in there, so to give you an idea of some of these places that I've talked about and some of the artifacts that are in the museums and the dioramas, things like that, rather than filming, well, I wasn't allowed to film what I felt it was not appropriate to film. I'll put a little slideshow together at the end of each episode just to illustrate some of those points. So we're coming back up to the banks of the On Canal. Now, when I say there's two bridges here, a little ways to the east around the bend of the road is the road to the bridge over the Orne River, which was the second bridge that was wanted to be taken that night. But the one over the canal is the most famous. So we're now just going to head back over the bridge just one last time before heading off to another location close by, and have another little look at the cafe and